And first, I want to welcome Neta Pakitso to the stage. She is the Botswana project assistant of the organization Gender Links, which is a leading Southern African women's rights organization. And Gender Links has received multiple awards for their work. For example, the Drivers of Change and African Union Awards for their outstanding contribution to advancing women's rights in the region. Um, yeah, thank you for being here.
Hi,
Please
thank you very
tell
much
us a
for
little bit about yourself. How did you find your way to Gender Links?
I'm actually not the project assistant of GenderLinks. I'm a project assistant on one of the projects that GenderLinks has running, one of the funds. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for inviting
Nice
me.
to meet you.
Yeah, lovely to meet everybody as well. So I guess I'm happy to be here.
I think the fund you're talking about is the Marang LGBTIQ fund, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
would would you like to tell us a little bit more about the fund and the work that you are doing?
Yeah, I would be happy to. So basically, Marang Fund is one of the uh, funds that is being offered by Genderlinks, rather, or it's being housed by Genderlinks. It's a regional initiative that works across Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Madagascar, and Mauritius. It basically resources and strengthens LGBTQI-led organizations and LGBTQI mandated communities. So the work that we do is basically around we facilitate, or rather we assist in the strategic litigation and advocacy work that these organizations and these communities do. And we also help create safe spaces for them and service them with, sorry, every other administration and coordination needs that they have. And we also have capacity strengthening through the Gender Links Academy and other um, partners that we have within the community. We have allied communities that we work with often who support us and help us support these communities.
Yeah, thank you. How did you get started with the fund? Like for how many years does it exist?
The fund only just started. Sorry, I'm in the car. The fund
Sorry.
only just started June, right? But GenderLinks has existed for quite some time, since 2001. The fund is new to GenderLinks, but there are other funds that GenderLinks has had and has offered to varying communities across Southern Africa and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. So that's a very new development.
Yeah.
And since you mentioned that Genderlinks um, yeah, is active for a very long time now, can you explain to us in what fields Genderlinks is active?
Gender justice for the most part. We do a lot of gender justice work, especially in empowering women and girls.
And I've seen that Genderlinks has worked with over 1,000 survivors of gender-based violence to
Yeah,
help them, yeah, reclaim their lives through entrepreneurship training.
yeah.
Um, can you tell us what that process looks like? What do you do in the entrepreneurship trainings?
Since I'm not based on that part of the organization's work, I'm not particularly equipped to speak at length about it. It is my colleagues' line of work. I have
Mhm.
mostly just focus on the LGBTQ fund. I do offer support here and there, but I'm not well versed on that part.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
yesterday we had a session from an academic point of view about civil society in Botswana.
Yeah.
And one question we couldn't quite answer yesterday was regarding the change of government last year.
Mhm.
Have you noticed a difference in your work ever since the government change?
I don't think it's particularly to do with this particular government change because if we're being honest, Botswana has never really had like a very strict or very compromising um laws or in or policies really for the people in Botswana, right? If there had ever been any human rights challenge, and anybody speaks up against it or brings it up, there's always been support. We have never had like compared to a lot of countries in the region, we haven't had compromising situations that are dire like that.
Hmm.
So even with the particular community that I work with the LGBTQI community, they have made strides in decriminalizing same-sex relationships, in decriminalizing a lot of policies or laws that were not in favor of the community. Since 2019, there has been great strides. So yeah.
And maybe to refer back to the fund you're working for, um, can you describe a little bit to us what your upcoming plans are since the fund just started? Um, yeah.
So we started in June, right?
Mhm.
The first the call out for applications for the grantee partners was in June. And since then we have onboarded 20 organizations altogether that we work with across these 5 countries, 4 per country. And we have been able to successfully establish a regionally grounded grant making model that resources these organizations. And we have started doing work on the strategic litigation for the various needs for each of these organizations across these countries. For example, with Botswana, what the need is, the immediate need for strategic litigation in Botswana is around hate crime, right? So that is the strategic litigation work that we're starting. But the same is not is it doesn't apply across the 5 countries. In Namibia, what they need is a recognition of same-sex marriage. And then in Mauritius, the pressing need is hate crime, but not in a similar context as Botswana. So it's always just varying across all of these. And then also we have been able to start work on shifting narratives through storytelling to communicate and to connect with the communities that coexist with the LGBTQI communities that we work with in the varying countries. For example, we have had various linking and learning sessions with allied communities and communities that we perhaps have not worked with before in the region. So, so far since June, we have been able to put together 4 linking and learning sessions. And from those linking and learning sessions, we have had great interactions, and we have even established a way to work together as civil organizations, as civil society organizations in these countries. Before, we just always worked in parallel. You'll find that the feminist movement is working on a similar thing that the LGBTQI movement is working on, but for some reason they just haven't figured out that they can work together instead of parallel to each other. So we have been able to make great strides in collaborating efforts and just having a more effective engagement. We've even been able to draft policy papers, policy packs for the to submit to the SADC PF and also for the G20. We were part of the group that drafted the policy pack that was submitted to the C20 to be passed on to America.
Yeah, that's very interesting because yesterday we had a discussion with a professor about the
Yeah.
civil society in Botswana, and one observation that the professor has made was that civil society in Botswana is lacking collaborative action. And now
That is
you
true.
mentioned that the feminist movement and the LGBTQIA movement is working more together now. So, yeah, what's your perspective on that observation? Do you like how do you perceive collaborative action in Botswana?
It has certainly become a learning session. It has become a learning effort rather. It's becoming something that were the outcome so far we're happy with. My department and I were very happy with the outcome so far. We've been able to collaborate perhaps with organizations that we wouldn't have collaborated with before, and we have been able to lend an ear, they lend an ear, they lend hands, we lend
Mhm.
hands. So it's been incredible. And it's not just in Botswana as well. It's also across the region, across the 5 countries that we work with. We've been able to make incredible strides with those organizations across the countries altogether.
Yeah, amazing. So you would say you're well connected in the area?
I believe so. So far, yes, I'm proud to say we have incredible connections. Yes.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
one thing I want to circle back to is that you mentioned that one pressing issue in Botswana is the hate crime.
Yes.
And could you give us a little bit more context to that issue?
Um, since August, I think I might be wrong, but I think since August we have had 3 people in the community, in the LGBTI community, pass away due to hate crime conflicts. One person was killed in Maung, and it was a very brutal killing. What happened to him was very unfortunate and very cruel. And
Mhm.
there was a trans woman who was also killed in the central region of Botswana as well. And there was another gay man who was also killed in Kasane. So because of that, because of how cruel the hate crimes are becoming, and because of how just it's becoming a little bit too overwhelming to kind of like be confronted by such crimes. Uh, Before people are becoming bolder and bolder in taking that line of, I don't even know what to call it, but yeah, that is becoming more of a bold decision that most societies who are homophobic, or most societies that are comfortable enough to express hate in that way, that's the route they seem to be comfortable taking. They're either emboldened by the new religious the how do I put this? The outright movement has become more emboldened by the support that they're getting from the West. And a lot of them are actually becoming more um outspoken, and to the point of even killing someone, like that, deciding to end someone's life entirely because that person is perceived gay, even if the person has not themselves claimed that they are gay. It is enough for them to perceive someone so and end their life because of it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing yeah, these stories with us, or with sharing what's happening in Botswana with us. And that just shows how important the work is that you are doing, and how important the fund is that you set up. And would you say that, like, what would you say are the main challenges you are encountering with the fund or in the field you're working in?
At the moment, each country has varying challenges, right?
Mhm.
Like, for example, in Botswana, the challenge that my grantee partners are mostly facing, is that of, it's not extreme hate per se in the society, but it's just resistance of interaction, where possible, where needed. The most pressing part of the community, the most challenge that the part of the community face is mostly the trans persons in the movement. It varies, it differs for them than it does for the other persons in the community. And then in Namibia, it's also a little bit different, but all around, I can comfortably say most of those challenges are driven by the moral um standing of most people. It becomes challenging when they need to interact or they have projects that they would like to execute, and those projects are dependent on those people. So the criminalization of these people, or rather of my community, and the hostile policies that exist within these countries, they make it very difficult for my grantee partners to execute the work that they intend to execute, and also just to exist in those communities as well. And the anti-rights movement as well is becoming more well coordinated, and they are backed by religious and political leaders, and they have more um energy and more, you know. And then also the LGBTQ movements across the region are just generally underfunded. Even with the fund that we're currently operating, sorry, it's only for the next 2 years. So it becomes challenging for my grantee partners to plan work that goes beyond just these 2 years. So it's a lot to take, and just generally their safety. We're always worried about their safety, whether it's online or in person. They get a lot of threats. They get a lot of just threats around. They get intimidated. They get all of these yeah child they face all of these challenges. So yeah.
And what are maybe some solutions you have developed, or what are you focusing your work on now to
Mm.
challenge this?
So, through the strategic litigation, we are trying to challenge policies and influence policy reform across
Mhm.
all of these countries. And at the same time, we're also trying to empower the grantee partners on how they can change, or rather what they can do to overcome what they currently operating under, right? And then we're also trying to find new opportunities of engagement for them and how they can we're trying to find as much funding opportunities outside of our fund that they could take up and go on with beyond the next 2 years. I mean, I'm working with them from 2025 until 2027.
Mhm.
So we've started to look at what life could look like from 2027 going forward. So it's just always that. And then also we're just generally trying to have as much as possible, shifting conversations that might shift the public discourse, not just with the public. Like I said, we've started working with organizations, other civil society organizations, right? So with engaging with them, with working with them, and with having all of these linking and learning sessions, we have found that we get to find out that we have more common ground than not. And we start having conversations that basically shift perspectives and kind of like open up not just the possibility of working together, but just even relating outside of the work, just realizing, you know what, actually, I never looked at you that way. Until I spoke to you in this platform, I never actually looked at you that way. So it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that's where the collaborative action you're building is very yeah, coming to
Yeah.
use.
Yes.
Um, do you have anything else you want to share about your work with us?
It's really been a great and joyous um effort altogether. It has opened up my eyes to a lot. Before June, I had not worked with the LGBTQI community like that. I'd always worked with the SRHR communities and other communities, but I'd never actually worked full on with the LGBTQI community. So it's a continued learning process even for me. And so yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today, for the important and inspiring work you're doing.
Thank you very,
Um, yeah, we're really glad you made it here to our session.
thank you.
And the plan is that our next two guests will introduce their work now first.
Yeah,
And it would be great if you could stick around for the discussion round in the end.
I
Um,
definitely will.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
And then everyone will have the chance to ask your questions to the organization representatives directly.
All right.
And I noticed that the other two representatives are here in the room with us as well. And, while we wait for Robert, we could continue with our second guest, and that's Kubepo Kulekani Saul. Thank you for being here.
All right, hi everyone. I think first of all, may I please apologize for the noise, the background music that you're hearing. I am at a work event that I could not get out of, but I hope I'm audible enough.
Yeah, you're perfectly audible. I can't hear any background music. It's perfect. Maybe
Okay,
let me introduce you
awesome.
first to our audience. Kulikani is an alumna from the She is Empowered program of the Africa Matters initiative and has founded her own organization called Cherish Them, which focuses on gender-based violence and mental health issues, which I'm sure you're going to tell us more about today. Um, yeah, you previously worked with Africa Matters Initiative, which is a youth-led nonprofit organization that's committed to empowering African youth. Can you tell us more about the work you're doing?
Yes, most gladly, I will definitely do that. So
Mhm.
I have like a small, presentation for you
Perfect.
guys. Before I go into the work that we are doing as Cherish Them Society, let me just briefly take you through what Africa Matters does as a whole. So Africa Matters Initiative is a youth-led organization that is committed to upskilling and empowering African youth, myself included as an alumni of the Africa Matters Initiative. So they have four flagship programs, being the Africa Matters Ambassadors Program. We have the She is Empowered program. We have the Hair Environment Hair Fund. We have the Youth Leadership Development Program and the School Leadership Development Program. All of these programs are facilitated by the youth. And as a saying that we love to say, it's for the youth, by the youth, because we are definitely the ones that we have been waiting for. So, as per the introduction, my name is Kubepo Kulekani Sol. I am from Botswana. I am a graduate from the University of Botswana with a bachelor's degree in information and knowledge management. Currently working as a lecturer at Gaborone University College and also the founder and executive director of Cherish Them Society, which came about as a product from the She is Empowered program within the Africa Matters initiative. So now on to Cherish Them. Before Cherish Them Society, we have different flagship programs that I've just mentioned. And from Botswana, we've had four alumni that have been products of the Africa Matters initiative. In 2021, we had myself leading the hashtag GBV Free Botswana campaign, which later turned out to be a registered non-profit organization being Cherish Them Society. In 2021, we also had my fellow alumni do Women in Digitalization in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which was simply about getting girls more involved in STEM subjects. And then in 2022, we had Project Adopt a Girl, which was basically basically getting girls to take up more roles, more leadership roles, to own their space, to take up more spaces and leadership positions. And then in 2024, we had an AMAP alumni do the Plus for Life project, which was simply about encouraging young people to donate more blood, because we've recently had a shortage of blood at the blood bank here in Botswana. So it was just simply encouraging youth to donate blood to save more lives. So now on to Cherish Them Society. Cherish Them Society came about as my community engagement project within the Africa Matters Initiative. It was that time where COVID was just starting and the lockdown, everything that was happening. So we had all of the kids at home with their relatives, with their family, friends, of which then in Botswana we saw a huge spike in gender-based violence cases, where now a lot of children, we were reporting a lot of teenage pregnancy cases. We were seeing a spike in defilement and rape cases, a lot of domestic violence cases, some which we were seeing in our areas, which were technically not reported, and then some that were part of the statistics. So now it came about us now going into the schools. When the lockdown started loosening up, we were going into the schools, teaching and raising awareness on all forms of gender-based violence from the ages of 8 years old, because the youngest case that we've had was like a 6-month child, a 6-month-year-old girl who was raped. So now we were trying to take it from the young ones, trying to tell them to be aware of the signs, because if the from the conversations that we were having with them, we would hear them say, no, this uncle was saying that if I tell my mother, he's going to beat me up. If I tell an adult, he's going to beat my mother up. If I tell someone who's older than me, if I share the secret that we have, he's going to do a bad thing to one of my family members. So we are trying to raise that awareness that they don't necessarily have to keep it for themselves. They can just tell somebody that they trust that they are being touched in a wrong way, they're being touched in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable. So that's what the hashtag GBV Free Botswana campaign was all about, which was then eventually registered into a non-profit organization. So our objectives as Cherish Them Society are to raise awareness and advocate. This is us now educating communities about social ills, but with more emphasis on gender-based violence, mental health, substance abuse, through campaigns, which are school campaigns, work-related campaigns, and social media platforms. We also aim to empower the young people, because most of our team are made up of graduates, are made up of young people. This is us now empowering and equipping them with skills, with tools, through either being a volunteer within the organizations, through the workshops that are hosted, which eventually help them. And then the last objective is to facilitate dialogue and collaboration. We are very, as a growing organization, we are very big on collaboration. We are very big on having conversations that take us from where we are and put us at a different space in terms of knowledge. And currently, in terms of collaboration, besides being the executive director, I'm also the project manager for the United Against GBV campaign. This is a coalition of about 10 organizations which are trying to raise awareness, and not just raise awareness, but actually turn awareness into action, one area at a time. So we launched the campaign this year in August, and the very first area that we are targeting is Mogoditani, which is um, a place in Gaborone. So now talking about the United Against Gender-Based Violence, I now want to take you through the role of civil societies. I hope that's okay, and I hope I'm not too fast.
No, that's great. And that's a great connection to another session we had yesterday. So please carry on.
So, as civil societies in Botswana, our role is to advocate and to influence policy decisions. These are now us driving human rights and gender equality in terms of advocacy. Our role is to contribute to legislative reform and policy development. Or
Okay, but Robert, if you can hear us, maybe we can take a pause from our second speaker and continue with your presentation. Is it okay with you?
It's okay with me.
Okay, then I'm going to introduce you and then you can share your presentation. Yeah, Robert is the founder and executive director of Botswana Watch your organization. And Botswana Watch is a civil society organization which mainly promotes transparency as well as accountability. And Robert, if you want, you can share your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Has anything shown on my part? I'll try to share it. Thank
Yes,
you.
we can see your
And to please,
presentation.
my apologies for the tech challenge. I will also switch off my camera and I will rush through the presentation probably next 5-10 minutes. Sorry about that.
That's okay, but you don't have to rush. You have all the time.
In terms of way this challenge persists, but anyway, I will take my time. Basically, I will look at three things. The first one will be just a brief overview of the organization, Botswana Watch. Secondly, you look at the ecosystem, CSO ecosystem in Botswana. I know the two presenters from Botswana, they must have touched on that. And then also, as well as the third point, the challenges especially faced by CSOs in Botswana. Botswana Watch, this is an entity which was established in 2026. We go by a slogan which says building trust through transparency. And this exists primarily to promote issues of transparency and accountability, more especially in the governance, management and governance of natural resources. Like we work in extractive sector, natural resources. Our membership locally in Botswana, we have an umbrella organization, apex body, it's called Bukongo. We are a member of the Kimberley Process, Civil Society Coalition. This is where it's a tripartite arrangement between the participants, normally they are the governments, and then the industry, normally they are represented by the World Diamond Council. So this is where we want to curb the issue of blood diamond and also gross violation of human rights within the diamond sector. And then you are also members of the Tax Justice Network Africa, based in Kenya, Nairobi, and then also the UN CAC Coalition. This is the one which tried to facilitate the implementation of the UN Convention Against Corruption. And then, of course, you are members of the Resource Justice, formerly known as Publish What You Pay. Our areas of work, they span from fiscal transparency or fiscal governance, tax justice, tax justice. This is where you want to look at your tax regime, if they are porous and they can facilitate leakages of public resources. But this one, we are not working much on it because it's a technical and political issue. You also need to look at the issue of double taxation agreements, and as we all know that tax it's sort of like when you dodge tax or you avoid it, you erode the tax base of a country. We look at the issue of illicit financial flows, which we also not work on that much because also we need to have any empirical evidence in terms of the amount of resources leaving the country and the pockets of flows. We also work on the issue of corruption and then also anti-money laundering and counter financing of terrorism. And then lastly, we look at the issue of mineral governance. This is our main work, where we work with inhabitants residing in proximity of an extraction, just to see the relationship between the mining companies and the host community. So I will briefly just talk about the three ones that I have highlighted red, being physical governance, corruption, and then mineral governance. Under physical transparency, we have a 18-month research project that we are doing with the Ministry of Finance in Botswana and our partner IBP, International Budget Partnership, based in Washington, D.C. This is where you want to find how transparent is our budget processes. So basically, it's not a perception, but it's or opinion. It's a fact-finding mission or exercise. So I will not dwell much on that one, except to say that we measure three tenets. The first one being transparency, where you want to look at the comprehensiveness of our budget process, the budget information to the general public and its usefulness within the specified time. Look at the issue of participation. Do we have meaningful and formal mechanism where citizens are given the opportunity to contribute towards the 4 cycles of budget, either planning, execution, monitoring, or any side, which normally is not the case. Lastly, we look at the oversight. Here in Botswana, we have 2 institutions responsible for oversight of the budget, being our legislatures or national parliament and the Office of Auditor General. Those are the main 2 ones that we work with under this project. I will not go into the results, but currently we are waiting for the result for next year. But if you want to Google it, you can Google it under International Budget Partnership. But for now, I am the lead researcher in Botswana. So under corruption and anti-money laundering, just to raise awareness on the social ills of corruption, as per the convention, which really recognizes the role of civil society. Also want to popularize the Whistleblowing Act of 2016. That piece of legislation, it lacks the protection mechanism for the whistleblowers. And we have observed that that act, since its enactment, has not been, the uptake has been low because of the absence of the protection mechanism. Currently, we have a memorandum of understanding with our anti-corruption busting agent. We call it DCEC, Directorate of Corruption and Economic Crime, which spells out parameters of engagement. And then we're also working on the issue of anti-money laundering. We are working with the 3 regulators, and then we undertake a sector risk assessment. This is where we assess all the NPOs, how vulnerable are they to be used by terrorists. So that's what we do. From there, we cascade the research and do public education. The last area will be the issue of mineral governance. In our view or in our belief, we believe the extractive industry is a tripartite arrangement with three key players, being the government, which normally is the regulator, and then the host community, and then lastly we'll have the mining companies. Of course, these three players will have varying expectations, where the government will normally, if they discover any minerals, they will want to expand their GDP, they will want to infrastructure development, job creation, and all the like. The host community, of course, they will expect for their. I hope I'm still audible. Thank you. The host community, they'll want to get access to jobs and provide services to the mining companies, and then so that their local, their livelihoods will improve. But from the mining companies, normally we expect one expectation, and that will be to maximize both profit, either at the expense of the government and also the community. We work with the artisanal small scale miners. We now want to get into the issue of energy transition minerals, because Botswana has deposits of some. And then lastly, we have what do you call it's our signature event that we do it on an annual basis, Alternative Mining Forum. This is what we adopted from the regional one, which takes place every year, February, in Cape Town. So this is, we are trying to create a safe space where the three key partners I've mentioned, they come under one roof for a constructive dialogue. And each one, they can able to state their challenges, and then we come up with some what's the way forward. Are there any policy reforms or any that we can recommend to do policy briefs? And then we also invited the Minister of Minerals to come and officiate it, and then key stakeholders and other society organizations. So I have put there 2026 because you are planning to do one next year around April. And then now, what's the status or what's the ecosystem of CSOs in Botswana? I think some of my two previous speakers have touched on it, so I will not dwell much on it as well. That in Botswana, you are free to establish civil society and then also to operate as long as you comply with the three regulatory bodies, one being the Register of Societies, which majority of civil societies are registered under it. And then we have the Master of the Higher Court, which regulates and registers trusts. And then we have the other one by the companies, normally registered the companies limited by guarantee. It's a civil society, but registered under companies. Of course, they operate under different sectors. You've already seen the two ones: social inclusion, human rights, environment, health, disability, and indigenous community, and all that. The whole idea is that civil society, they complement government efforts because most of the civil society, their role cannot be overemphasized because you are at the proximity of grassroots. You will find that each and every corner, they see that a community-based organization operating there. During my struggle with the challenges, I picked some few challenges. Probably some of them have already been mentioned. My apologies. First and foremost, I think there's a misuse or misapplication or misinterpretation, I don't know what we may call it, of the FATF anti-money laundering, counter financing of terrorism laws, which we feel that Botswana might try to use to curtail the work of civil society. This one is not only in Botswana, but in other countries as well. It happens. We also found that there's a bit of surveillance of what most of the human rights defenders are doing. There is this issue of economic classification of Botswana. Botswana has been classified not only as a middle-income country, but upper middle-income country status. And that somebody was talking about funding that really has dealt as a heavy blow as civil society, living in some of the NGOs in Botswana in the periphery of folding the development work. There's a bit of trust deficiency between the government and the civil society. And then also for the longest time, there's been the absence of right to Information Act or access to information, but it has been enacted this year. I think it's around January or February. But its application still becomes a challenge because you need to apply, you need to state the reasons why you need that information for, why you're going to use it, and all that. The partnership between the civil society and government is like a horse and a rider kind of partnership. Is ad hoc, it's not structured. The citizen participation is not enshrined in the constitution. There's no single legislation which talks about citizen participation. So even during the development of the government strategic documents like National Development Plan, the citizens, if you're not consulted, they're not consulted. But then we are currently a bill has been tabled under Parliament for constitutional amendment. I saw it on the program. I must have missed yesterday. So we are hoping this will go into the next constitution. Some of the human rights defenders are facing threats. I think I've heard this one from neighbour as well. And then there's a lack of domestication of international instruments. The government will rectify and sign some of this either at AU level or UN level. But the problem is these treaties and conventions are not being domesticated. Currently, Botswana is very notorious for joining some transparency mechanisms. You mentioned open government partnership. They are not members of OGP. You mentioned extractive industry transparency initiative. They are not members of that. They say they are members of the Kimberley process. But the Kimberley process is not a transparency mechanism. It's just a voluntary scheme which says this diamond is not from a blood diamond. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I know I was just rushing around. I was scared that I would be cut off, but at least I managed to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for your presentation and for the overview you've given us about your work. I have one follow-up question for you. Since you work in the field of mineral governance, yesterday we briefly touched upon diamonds and how the diamond money was used in the past to build infrastructure. And tonight we also are gonna hear a presentation about economic diversification, which is closely linked to diamonds as well. Could you maybe tell us more about what you're doing in the field of mineral governance? Like, what is it exactly that you're doing?
Okay. Okay. Let me deal with your question first, which I might not have an answer for it. But for the longest time, Botswana has relied on a single commodity, and this is a luxurious commodity, diamond.
Mhm.
And then I think they failed to diversify. And then now that the rise of the synthetic diamonds is getting up, now the natural diamonds are taking a knock. So this now the country is not gaining revenue from the diamonds. Diamonds have been synonymous with infrastructure development, so which means then they fail to stimulate the non-mineral sectors. You can talk about agriculture, manufacturing, and other services. So for us as Botswana Watch, being part of the KP Civil Society Coalition, these are some of the issues that we normally advocate for in terms of diversification. But probably what we now do, we work a lot with the communities residing in the proximity of extraction to find out if the community can have a stake in the mining sector. I hope I've answered your question, but you can have a follow-up of it again.
Yeah, you did. You did. Thank you, Robert, again for your presentation and the work you're doing to fight corruption. Our second speaker is back in the room, and we could continue now. And Robert, if you want, you can stay for our discussion round at the end. Maybe if I noticed there are some questions for you, Robert, then we can address them after the third presentation.
That's okay. I have absolutely no problem. Thank you so much.
Okay. Kubepo, you are back in the room with us. And
Yes.
thank you for coming back. And we stopped with your presentation when you were on the topic of the role of civil society in Botswana. Do you want me to share your presentation for you?
The slides that are left are not really that much. I think I can handle it without the presentation.
Okay. Then
Yeah, so I'm just going to briefly rush through the role because I believe that Neo and Robert have already addressed most of the things that I'm going to address. Also, being fearful of my network being cut again. Okay, so like I was saying before I got cut, the role of civil societies in our country is to influence policy changes, to raise awareness, and to advocate for different rights, human rights, gender equality, climate, and a lot of various things that most civil societies are passionate about. We also have the role being of community mobilization and raising awareness. We have service delivery. This is mostly for civil societies that plan to or try to bridge the gap between the people in developing areas of this country and services that are mostly deemed only available in the city. I could give an example with what we do as Cherish Them Society. You would find that majority of the organizations that tackle gender-based violence or mental health issues are mostly based in the city or in the developed areas of Botswana, and not many of them are able to reach the rural areas, the developing areas of this country. And I will tackle why when I now touch briefly on the challenges. The other role is with partnerships and collaboration. The role of civil societies is to partner with the private sector, to partner with other civil society organization, and most of all to partner with the government, because at the end of the day, we are all trying to make our country a better place. So now moving on to the challenges, I'm just going to briefly touch on them because Robert already touched on them extensively. But the challenges that we face as civil societies in Botswana, the first one would be limited, unstable, or no funding at all. So when I mentioned that majority of the organizations are based in the city and not many of them are able to tackle these issues in developing areas, it's mostly because of the unstable funding. You'd find that the fund that you have is only enough to take you to a certain place and not really where the services are really needed. Because at this point, I would say that Gaborone is saturated with a lot of organizations that tackle GBV, that raise GBV on a daily basis. You'd find that every weekend there is a march to raise awareness against GBV. And in rural areas or developing areas, there is no march at any time of the year. There are no organizations that are raising awareness in schools or at kota or in communities or going door to door raising awareness. And then the other major challenge that civil societies in Botswana face would be volunteer retention. Now, this stemming to the limited funding, of course, civil societies do not have that much money to have employees or to be able to sustain a large number of people or remunerate them. So now you find that it will be difficult to have the same people volunteering for certain programs, because at the end of the day everybody needs to have a job, everybody needs to have something that puts something on their table, that puts the lights on. And then just having them there volunteering and not having a stable income becomes difficult for them to stay in one area. They end up going to look for jobs that actually pay them. And then when they now have that job, it becomes extremely difficult to balance between the job and to balance between volunteering for a certain organization. And then I think the last challenge that I'm going to tackle, because the other ones are mostly repetitive, would be limited visibility and public trust. Like Robert said, there's absolutely nothing that stops any Motswana to register for a non-profit organization or to go register for a trust. As long as you are compliant, you are absolutely free to register for that. But now, when you are new and starting, there's limited visibility. A lot of people don't know what exactly it is that you are offering, how you intend on maintaining whatever service it is that you are providing to the people. And then, as new as you would be, if you go seek for permission, because before going to school, we have to register and seek for permission with the Ministry of Basic Education for primary schools and junior schools. So going there and you are very new and not particularly known would be like a problem. You get a lot of questions, of course, which are rightfully so. They should question what exactly it is you're going to be doing with the students, if your curriculum or the way you're going to raise awareness is different, or it's going to go against school policies in any way. But then it becomes extremely difficult if they now restrict the type of content that you want to share, more especially even after they have seen it. And now the last part that I will be talking about would be, as much as we've shared these challenges now, the opportunities and way forward for civil societies. I think the first one would be strengthening partnerships, because, as I was saying, we do have a coalition of different organizations that are trying to tackle gender-based violence. Each organization bringing a different set of skills, a different um, they're bringing just something different just to make sure that the coalition actually works and actually creates a difference. So strengthening partnerships, be it with the government, be it with other civil societies in Botswana, because it is not a competition. We are all trying to make Botswana better. It would be digital transformation. I think most of the organizations that are in my circle, most of the organizations that I know, uh, are not that familiar with using social media, and social media is a very powerful tool to get information out there to the people. So maybe digital transformation if they could maybe tap into the power of social media. And then the other one would be youth engagement. I believe that the youth are very powerful people and they could create change. So just tapping into youth, their skills, and the last one would be building capacity and professionalism. There's power in all these online courses, all these short courses that are there to boost your skills, to boost your confidence, to boost if you have as a leader, you somehow have a problem with public speaking, there are courses, you could take up more opportunities as long as you're building your capacity, your professionalism, so that you can better serve the community that you are working for. So I believe that is all that I have for you. I would take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Kibepo. I'm really thankful for you, for your patience, and that you came back to us to continue your presentation. There are questions in the chat for you. I have one question before I'm going to move to the chat questions. Now, in your second part of your presentation, you mentioned how important it is to work with the government, and you also talked about the unstable funding. And are you experiencing support from the state in your work?
Civil societies or with Cherish Them Society personally?
Civil society organizations like yours.
There is a certain amount of funding here in Botswana. Yes, the government does sponsor, like for our work with gender-based violence. Hey, we have the Botswana Gender-Based Violence Prevention and Support Center. That is the major organization, the most visible one, the most known one that tackles GBV. It has shelters. I think it has 3 shelters: one in Gaborone, one in Francistown, and one in Mau. That one, I know that it gets funding from the government and other organizations. But then we have other civil society organizations that struggle, Cherish Them Society included, that really struggle to get funding from within the country. We often rely for funds that come from outside the country. Within the country, I don't want to put it like they are reserved for certain type of organizations, but we know that there are organizations that are most definitely getting funding from within the state. I don't know if that is answering your question. However, support is there. Funding, it's not necessarily in terms of money. There, I know for a walk that we had when we requested for assistance, the Department of Gender Affairs did help. They helped us through with the planning. They helped us with securing water for the people that were coming to the organized march with us. They also borrowed us their banners, the marching banners. So funding is not necessarily in forms of money. It could be support. It could be going to somebody who's knowledgeable to ask them to review my funding request to a different organization.
Yeah, support or infrastructure that helps too. Yeah, and you did answer my question. Thank you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
there is a question in the chat directed especially to you, and it says, are donations for charities or membership tax fees deductible in Botswana? This question is coming from Domela Group, an organization, and they are asking because in Germany they are, and this sets strong incentives for donations and memberships.
Oh, okay. Group. For charities, specifically non-governmental organizations or societies, specifically those that are registered with the Botswana Registry of Societies, uh, tax is not they are tax free. They are tax free. However, I'm aware that with trusts and other ones, they are not tax free. But I am certain that NGOs and other societies, except for social clubs and churches, it's tax free. I hope I'm answering your question, Jamila Group.
Yes, you are.
All
And there
right.
are more questions in the chat, this time for Robert. I'm going to just read them out loud for you. And one question is regarding the misuse of FATF and AML regulations directed against civil society. And the question is if you could please elaborate who is misusing it and who is affected.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Basically, because when I was doing my presentation, I was rushing, but the regulations are being misused by the government against civil society organizations, more especially the human rights defenders. And then probably if you are deemed to be inclined to a certain party, then the government will say they might just designate you as a terrorist, and then they will say it's a national security, and then they shut down your organization. This is not as rife as in other countries, but it is coming up. Also, the media practitioners and the media fraternity have also been facing the same challenge. So there's another question which talks, I think, is in relation to the survey that I
Yes.
talked about.
Yes.
The open budget survey. Like I said, this is an 18 months research, or let me just say research or survey. Yes, we will look at the legislature, which is the MPs. Basically, what you want to assess, we want to assess if, in terms of their role in the budget processes, the extent to which they provide oversight to the budget. Constitutionally, the members of parliament are mandated to reject the budget presented by the Minister of Finance every year in February, first Monday of February. But that has not happened because they are viewed as just rubbish stamping what the legislature they have presented. So the results we normally comes with recommendations, and as the lead researcher, I take those results and then I present them specifically to the legislatures.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them, they would decry lack of capacity in terms of they are not able to provide oversight to the budget. So, but we do present it. This survey, the last one, it was 127 countries. And yes, you can get the results if you just go to International Budget Partnership or Open Budget Survey. If you Google them, and then you can choose which country you want to view the results, and you will find a summary of the results in the website. And you will also state who was the researcher in different jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We are going to try to find the link to share it in the chat. And have you received any reactions from members of parliament to the survey? And if so, like how were the reactions?
Well, of course, because Botswana has not been doing well, I think since it joined the survey in 2006. What Because, like I said, I think it's because citizens, they don't, there's this participation is not in, there's no piece of legislation which mandates the Minister of Finance when they are doing the budget, they need to consult ordinary citizens. So they will just say, even the members of parliament, before they come to debate the budget, they need not debate it. Yeah, sort of like when during the formulation, they need to gather views and priorities from their constituents. So that, and then find out if the budget reflects those views and priorities. But normally it never happens. So the reaction will be, we are hamstrung because we don't have a budget act in place which directs us as members of parliament what to do. We can come up with some recommendations in terms of exactly what they need to do. For example, they can do an infographics, sort of like simplified version of the budget, and they can take it to their constituency and consult their constituencies. But that most of the time does not happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this insight. Stephanie shared a link in the chat. Robert, could you maybe check if this is the correct link? And I've also seen another question by
Yes, that's okay. Sorry. Yes, that's the one that's the one that will give you the results for Botswana, and then also it will have a questionnaire because it's a set of almost 142 questions that we need to go through them. That's why it takes 18 months, and then it becomes back and forth in terms of did you score this correctly. But in a nutshell, that is the link. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as you see, the link in the chat is the correct link if you want to learn more about it. And Erika Hermann has a question for Kubepo. And she says, you mentioned volunteer retention. How dependent are civil society organizations on international volunteers?
Thank you so much for your question. I think it just depends on how well known the organization is for it to attract international volunteers. I know the non-profits that are in Maung, I've seen a couple of them that really do work with international volunteers. I think it all just depends on how well known they are and how they interact with them. So yeah, I think I answering your question. If not, do let me know.
Okay, maybe I can comment on that in a second.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, yeah, I think she's right in terms of organizations that are independently, they can outsource. As a matter of fact, we used to have Peace Corps from you who used to come here and assist in the community. But if you are an organization, you are looking for somebody with a strong background in research. You want to write a specific research, but we are still at liberty to do that. The challenge most of the time will be the upkeep of those volunteers. But if the organization sending them, they can able to assist in terms of the upkeep when they're in Botswana, I think that would be a fantastic idea. So I think that's a welcome development. Thank you. Just to comment on what she said.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question, and Kubepo and Antipa Neokitso said that in their areas of work, they can notice an increase of collaborative action. And Robert, would you say the same is the case for your field, or is it different?
Could you come up again with the question again? I don't think I got the question properly.
Okay, the other two speakers, they mentioned that in their field of work, they can see an increasing amount of collaborative action and multiple organizations working together. And would you say in your field it's the same case, or is it more a case of every organization works for itself instead of creating bigger networks?
Oh, okay. No, I understand. I do believe in the issue of partnership because it adds synergy. But to me, there are some pockets of efforts where civil society are clustered per their thematic work. Those working in the area of environment will be working together. Those working in the area of gender-based violence, they will be working together, just like that. I think through, especially those who are part and parcel of Bokongo. It's only that in this area that for Botswana Wash that we operate in, there are not too many organizations in this area, but where we can collaborate, we collaborate, especially if I can give example about the work of corruption. What we did, we looked for organizations that have a similar mandate, and then we formed a unit, and then we approached, this was approached through Bukongo as an umbrella organization, and then that's where they signed the MOU. So that was signed at that level. So in terms of collaboration, of course, there will be some elements of fragmentation and silos here and there, but most of the time we do encourage the issue of partnership and working together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your point of view. I have one last question to finish this session, and this is regarding the government change. Our first speaker briefly talked about it, but I want to ask you two as well. Have you noticed any changes regarding your work ever since the government change?
That's a loaded question. I'll ask you to go first.
I was just about to say gentleman first, but like he's saying, it's a loaded question, and
I think we have a technical difficulty again. But it's not too bad because we reached the end of our session.
Yeah, I was going to say I did not hear her as well, but I will not say there's been any change because remember the new government, the administration just was ushered just last year. So while they do talk a lot that the human rights government, they want to promote the issue of trust and accountability, transparency and accountability. So at the moment, I will not say we have anything tangible that you can able to judge them with in terms of either they're availing information or whether they're consulting the citizens. So for now, I'm not too sure if I will say there is any tangible change at the moment. I don't know what have you during yesterday's presentation from one of the professors. Did they allude to any significant change in the work of civil society?
I think the conclusion yesterday was that it was too soon to call. That you can't, you don't really have like tangible changes you can see, like you said as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Thanks to you. Yeah, and with that, we have reached the end of this session. Again, thank you very much to all the representatives of the civil society organizations for sticking around and for your patience and for trying to come back every time. We really appreciate it. And also to all the participants who stuck with us during the technical difficulties. Thank you for staying until the end. And we will now have a small break so everyone can get something to eat, something to drink. And we will meet back here at 4:30 German time, which is 5:30 Botswana time. And yeah, after the break, we will focus more on economic diversification and natural resource management.